Tuesday. It is the 241st day of the year. There are only 124 days left in 2023, and welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Thom. Today is the beginning of our fourth season on Tuesdays with Thom. I said that last week, but it actually begins today, the beginning of our fourth season. We appreciate all of you being here with us. We hope to bring you this year information that is interesting and hopefully bring some value to your life. Between now and the end of the year, we hope to explore bullying prevention, breast cancer awareness, Indigenous Peoples Day, the Forgotten Ones, college athletics, NIL, 9/11 memories, and much more. We appreciate you. This morning, I guess the question is, are you rich? Billionaires know that they're rich. Low-wage workers know that they aren't. But vast swaths of America's regular rich, and you know them, they're lawyers, doctors, dentists, they own construction companies in your hometown, for burger franchises on the highway, homes in the resort villages you want to retire to one day. They're young, old, Democrats, Republicans. They have two things in common. They're rich, but they don't feel that way. In fact, many even go so far as to say that they're poor in a nationwide survey of 1,000 objectively wealthy Americans, defined in this case as making at least $175,000 a year, roughly the amount required to crack the top 10% of the U.S. tax filers. A full quarter told us that they were, in this poll, told us that they were either very poor, or getting by, but things are tight. Half described themselves as being comfortable. The people who were polled, they have good jobs, own their homes, have savings for retirement, but by some combination of hard work and good fortune, they've achieved the old-fashioned American dream. At a time when pretty much everything is more expensive, cars, tuition, travel, and groceries, half of the respondents in the survey, said they worry about money. 25% don't think they'll be better off financially than their parents, and many have considered moving to a different part of the country, joining the pandemic exodus away from higher cost cities to areas in the U.S. with lower taxes and cheaper cost of living. Social media makes it easier than ever before to compare your lifestyle with those of your neighbors. Celebrities, professional athletes, or friends from college on the other side of the U.S. It's a daily bombardment of private jets, lavish trips, fancy meals, home renovations, and other flashy displays of conspicuous consumption. With a few clicks, it's easy to feel like you left behind. You don't have enough, especially at the time when the ultra wealthy have accumulated more and more money, and there's a growing sense that more and more people are getting left behind. Deborah Corbin, a 67-year-old retiree in Naples, Florida, with a home worth more than $1.3 million, says, "I think rich is subjective. When I'm in Southern Illinois, which is where I'm from, I feel rich. When I'm in Naples, I feel blessed. Down here, it's hard to feel rich because there's so many billionaires." James Bramble says, "I grew up quite poor and I know money can be taken away." He's a 53-year-old attorney in Salt Lake City, makes $350,000 a year. "To really feel rich, I think you would no longer have to depend on money," James says. "Like if you didn't work, you'd still be okay for the rest of your life." But what the unofficial polls say is you can still be rich and work. If you don't want to work, you're going to have to be wealthy. So our G list today is all of us. Those of you who are in the chat, you got something to say. I see you're already in the chat. Today is your day, so go ahead and say it. Our show today, of course, is sponsored by the Best Girl Consulting Firm. We want to thank Best Girl for its sponsorship. Without Best Girl, we wouldn't be here. So let's hear from Best Girl.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
Best Girl customizes the solution that fits your needs. So let's get to our roundtable regulars, Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker. Good morning, Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker. How you guys doing?
Good
Good morning.
morning. How are
Doing
you all
well,
doing?
TG.
Well,
Hope you're
football
doing
season has started, and the usual beginning blowout games were staged this past weekend with a couple of upsets. Good blowout games are the good teams bidding up on the teams that they're so much better than they are. But we had some upsets. So starting with Dion. Dion startled many people this weekend. Can he sustain it? What you guys think about Dion?
I think Dion and his team did exceptionally well. Tom, I'm really proud of them, and I think they're here for the future. His son Shadur had an exceptional game. He and also the running back, I think, for Colorado did an exceptional job. So I think they're here to stay.
Michael, when Auburn was looking for a coach, you were a big supporter of Dion, of going after Dion, because you thought that he would do well. What was your impression this past weekend?
Well, I will say I'm not surprised. I thought he would do well. Yes, Dion was in my top three. I had a top three of Dion, Lane Kiffin, and Hugh Freeze. We ended up with Hugh Freeze. I always told people that I thought Dion would be a long shot because he probably did not fit the mold of what Auburn wanted in a coach. But I never doubted his football IQ. You can't take away the fact that he played in 2 Super Bowls, played defensive back. You know, I knew he knew how to put together a team, and above and beyond everything else, he was going to be able to recruit. And that's exactly what he's done.
Yes.
You know, he had a plan in place, he implemented, and he executed. You know, there were a lot of people out there talking about him running off all these players from, Colorado.
Right.
Well, they were what, 1-11? I mean,
Yeah, 1-11 last year.
Yeah. And so already they've tied their record for winning in the first game.
That didn't take much. Yeah, and people were talking about, the team that they played had, pretty much replaced their entire, I think, offensive line or something. It's like, yeah, but Dion replaced the whole team. I think they had 86 new players on Colorado's team, so
Yeah.
86.
that was no excuse.
Wow.
86 new players.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
he basically playing with a totally different team than they had there last year. It made a big difference too in a positive way.
There were a few holdovers. I think it's somewhere in the number I've heard, maybe 14, 15, said they were going to stay there and toughen it out,
Right.
and stuff. But I got to tell you this. When Dion stepped in there in that first meeting with him, he said, Shadur, stand up. This is your new quarterback.
Absolutely.
And I think he was right. I find it funny that he threw for 510 yards against the national champion runner-up team from last year. But they're always, the commentators always have to talk about accuracy when it comes to a quarterback that has a natural tan. But I noticed that nobody talked about Shadur's accuracy when he actually hit on 80% of his passes. Nobody even mentioned it.
And that's amazing.
So he hit 80%.
Yes.
I didn't see it. So it was he hit 8 out of 10 passes.
8 out of 10 passes.
He hit 80% of his passes, and he threw for quite a few passes.
Yes.
On the run, and he never scrambled. I didn't see him scramble one time. He scrambled. They always say they say certain quarterbacks, they scramble and move in the pocket to throw downfield and keep their eyes downfield. Right. He did that. Nobody ever mentioned it.
Right.
Okay. So I just find it really lopsided in the announcement,
Yeah, I was going to say the game announcers really do a terrible job of highlighting the how good he is. I mean, they'll mention it, but they don't really go into a lot of detail and talk about his.
Well,
I think they do really well.
They still seem to have stereotypes for certain quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Certain quarterbacks are more accurate than others, in their opinion. Certain quarterbacks run better than others, in their opinion.
Well, they say that they're smarter than others. Some of them are smarter.
Well, they used to say that, but they kind of got to stop saying that now, because that's what is that, shaming or whatever they call it these days. So anyway, okay.
Barbara, I have to disagree with you respectfully when you said they do a poor job. No, they don't. They intentionally do that.
Well,
you can't look at that with an objective eye and then go the other way. That's intentional.
You're
okay?
correct.
And they talk about, and I'll use our quarterback at Auburn. That's the narrative. He only hit 49% of his passes. Well, the quarterback that played for Duke last night, I was keeping track of it. He was less than 50%. And nobody ever even mentioned it.
Wow.
Whenever he threw a ball and it was incomplete, they would probably say, well, the receiver should have caught that.
Yeah.
They don't say that when Robbie Ashford put the ball on the dime and somebody missed. They don't say that. It's always his accuracy. So I call it intentional.
What year is Robbie Ashford?
He is now a sophomore. He was a redshirt freshman last year, I think.
Is he just a sophomore?
Yes,
I
sir.
don't think he was a junior. Didn't he go? He played somewhere else the year before.
He played in Oregon, but he didn't play. He redshirted. He didn't play. So
okay.
Wow, I didn't know. So
yeah,
he's got time to mature and to grow. I in my opinion, having watched Robbie Ashford, he needs good quarterback coaching, and that he's got the ability.
Absolutely.
Well, I think so, and I think he needs the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, it's different when you put in there and you make one mistake, you're yanked out. But if somebody else get to learn from that mistake, then they get better. And
I just feel like this. If they're coming to tackle you and you got the ability to get out of the way, then that's an asset to me.
Absolutely.
How is that not good?
That's an excellent asset. I agree.
I can remember they had me running kickoffs one time, and I started out running the kickoff, and everybody was in the middle, so I went around the end, and the coach just fussed at me. I said, "But coach, did you see all those guys in the middle there?
Right.
Why would I want to run in there?
Right.
You know." Well, maybe you don't need to run. Okay, well, maybe I don't. If I got to run into 12 people, no. Anyway, go ahead. You were going to say something.
Well, I think, though, based on Hugh Freeze and how he deals with quarterbacks like that, because you remember Malik Willis was there at Auburn under Gus, and he couldn't play. He couldn't throw either. Well, he's in the pros after spending 2 years with Hugh Freeze. And Freeze said this the other day, we are going to have Robbie in the game. He is the most freakish athlete I've ever had at quarterback, and we need him to win. I hope that he will stick around. Well, Hugh Freeze also said that, it may change from game to game,
right, how
we use Robbie, and that's a good thing.
Yeah,
because he did that in the end zone. So all the teams are going to start to think, okay, well, when he come in, he's going to run. And you watch and see, he's going to drop back and drop a bomb on him.
Absolutely.
I guarantee that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's a big difference between Freeze and Harsin is that Freeze is going to definitely utilize his talents to the best for the team. And
well, don't leave out Gus, because Gus screwed up many quarterbacks.
So true.
I don't even count Harsin. Harson's just a blip on the radar. Okay, don't even leave Gus out. You got to keep Gus in this equation because he's the reason we're this far behind. And forget about Harsin. He was just a blip. Okay.
I knew you were going to bring him up, Michael. There was no need for me to mention Gus's name.
Harsin, Gus, and Tommy Tuberville. We can always count on Michael to throw those three out there.
Yeah, I'm going to be just like the announcers. I'm going to be biased too.
Anyway,
at least mine has facts. At least mine has facts. Okay?
Right. Yeah, you back yours up with facts, and that's a good thing.
So tell me about, I didn't watch, I was shocked this morning. I got up and I saw Duke beat Clemson. Wow. How'd that happen?
I was telling you guys, Duke used to be a basketball school. That's how I remember them. I didn't think they even had a football team. So I'm like you, Tom. I didn't watch the game. I saw the score and I was like, wait a minute, did I read that right?
A little bit of the beginning.
Well, I tell you guys something else, though, that's being overlooked. That transfer portal is making a big difference.
Yeah, it is.
It's true.
Yeah, it is.
In accumulating talent and building a football program.
Right.
Because you look at Florida State, they had a lot of people in the transfer portal that they went got. Yeah. They were listed in the top 5 of transfer portal recruiting along with Auburn. I think Auburn was number 3. I
Mhm.
don't know if Florida State was number 2 or number 4, but they were right there. And a lot of those players that made plays for Florida State were transfer players. And that's what Duke has done.
And let us add, Florida State beat LSU, which was, I'm sure, favorite to win that game. I didn't watch the game, but
LSU was favored by 2. They lost by 21.
Man,
Wow.
wow.
Well, you know, one thing I think one advantage the transfer portal gives you is offensive linemen generally mature a little later than some of the other guys. You know, you can get a defensive lineman, hell, he can get out there and just scrap and fight and throw elbows or whatever. But an offensive lineman, now that they can hold, it's a little bit different for them.
Yeah.
But you know, it takes them a couple of years to mature at that position. And so now that you can get them out of the transfer portal, you let them go somewhere else for a year and learn how to play, and then you transfer them in.
Smart. That's smart.
So,
yeah.
It is making a big difference.
Yes.
Yeah. That Duke football team last night, I think it was scheme. I think, to be honest with you, I think Dabo's team got out coached, to be honest with you. They had the hustle and the play, but I think they really got out coached, and their defense was there. And it's interesting, Tom, you brought up the offensive lineman and defense. They asked Shedeur Sanders, what's the difference in playing in the big boy league versus playing where he came from? And he said a couple things I thought was interesting. One, he said, well, there's not a real difference, so to speak. He said the biggest difference is the defensive linemen in this league get off the block really quick. And if you try to move and run, they will collapse on you. He says, but as far as some of the skill players, you know, they're skill players in the other league. He said, what you got to keep in mind, not everybody's going to go first round, regardless of what league you in. He said, up in the Power 5, they just have a higher percentage of NFL caliber players, but there are some NFL caliber players down there. And some of those players were players that Dion brought with him, you know, from Jackson State. And it was his ability to recruit. And, you know, that's some of the critics are saying, well, you know, Travis Hunter, he could have gone anywhere in the country. He went to Jackson State. Okay, well, what's your point?
Exactly. Exactly. But Michael,
what's your point? You don't take away from it because he went there and then he followed Dion. You wouldn't do that if it were Kirby Smart, you know.
That's true.
You know, I just like to see it fair and balanced, people. Come on.
Michael,
well, Antley, who's in the chat, Antley is always fair and balanced. He says he entered the transfer portal, but he's still in there. They're coming, Antley. They're coming for you, brother. Don't worry about it.
That's right. Be patient. They're coming for you.
Keep working out, Antley. Keep working out. Stay in shape.
Mike, you said something that really surprised me.
I kind of skipped over, and Barbara, I didn't ask you what do you got for us this morning? We just kind of went straight to the football thing.
That's quite all right. That was important. But, you know, Tom, I'm still here in Delaware with family and visiting with them. I want to wish my niece and nephew, Miguel and Destina, happy anniversary. I'm here while they're celebrating their anniversary and spending time with their little girls, 6 and 8-year-old, my babies, who started their first day of school today. So it's been a great day, a great trip while I'm visiting with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Michael?
Well, I got a couple things to bring up. One is somewhat disappointing, and this happened about a year ago. It hasn't gotten a lot of traction. A black FedEx driver who was allegedly shot at while on the job has been fired. This is a 25-year-old guy by the name of Montario Gibson, 25. He was fired because I'm sorry?
No, I was just getting the name down.
He was fired because he refused to accept a part-time non-courier job that the company offered in mid-July. Here's the situation. This took place in Mississippi, a place called Brookhaven, Mississippi. He was doing some delivering, but he was in a Hertz rental truck because evidently the truck he had an issue, but it had big Hertz signs on it all around and stuff. And he went into this neighborhood in order to deliver some packages, and he was approached by a father and a son. Where have you heard that before?
In Georgia.
Yeah.
Okay, and
South Georgia.
And the guy in the truck was following, telling him to stop, and he was like, "No, I'm not stopping." He goes down the street, and the son is in the street with a gun waving, and they're trying to track him.
Right?
Exactly.
Yes. And he said, "Hey, this is like Ahmaud Arbery." So he swerved and kept going. He heard 5 shots. He ducked.
Wow.
The funny thing about this situation is that the judge declared it a mistrial because video was not turned over to the prosecution or the defense. It was withheld by the Brookhaven Police Department. So the judge declared a mistrial. What does that tell you?
Wow.
Now, I will say in the Georgia situation, the governor stepped in and got rid of all those people down there and appointed a DA from North Atlanta. Okay, and went after those people for not doing what they needed to do. In this particular case, the police withheld video, didn't give it to the prosecution or the defense, so the judge declared it a mistrial. Then what FedEx did was he asked them, did they have a stay-at-home job for him? And they said no, and they fired him. Wouldn't even give him workers' comp. They put him back out on the route the very next day.
Wow.
And he said he was experiencing anxiety and panic attacks and stuff, and he could not do it. Wouldn't put him on workers' comp until he got a lawyer, and news media started to pick up on it. So then they gave him workers' comp. He was going for sessions and therapy and what have you. They only paid for 8 sessions. The rest of it he has to pay out of his pocket.
That's tough, man.
That is tough. That's awful. Now, Mississippi has some major problems. I shared that story with you guys about the goon squad down in Mississippi, where they actually, these 6 former police officers now went in and on 2 black guys that lived in a mostly all white community. And basically, this happened in January of 2023. They basically went in and tortured these 2 black men for absolutely no reason other than the fact that the neighbors didn't like them living next door to them. And these 6 police officers pleaded guilty just last week, and have been sentenced now to committing crimes. And they actually went in and tortured these men. I mean, actually put one of the officers held a gun in one of the black men's mouth and discharged the gun. The bullet, I think, lodged in the guy's throat or jaw or something. And he's disabled as a result of it. And the thought that this type of thing is still happening in 2023 is just unbelievable. But yeah, this happened down near Jackson, Mississippi. They've got some major issues in Mississippi.
No, they always have.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Michael, you mentioned Georgia's governor. He was in the news last week. Go ahead and talk about that. I know you've been working with him in various different capacities and speak highly of him. And
yes.
So go ahead and talk about Governor Brian Kemp from Georgia.
Yes, he was in the news last week, and it's ironic that I saw him on Wednesday at a reception, and we got a chance to talk. And, I went over to him and I said, Governor, you've become a master at sidestepping these political landmines. And he laughed and said, well, I may have stepped on one today. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, my press conference. And what he was alluding to was the fact that he came out against Republicans and people that are trying to remove Fonnie Willis as the general attorney. And it was a press conference that he did in the governor's office downtown, where he told them that, number one, he has not seen anything thus far that she's done that would put itself in a position where she needs to be removed and go before this committee. And as a matter of fact, he said, if we continue to retry the past, we can't win and move forward.
Good.
And as long as I'm governor, we're going to follow the Constitution and do things the right way. As a matter of fact, one state senator that wanted to call for a special session to have Fonnie Willis removed, the governor appointed a 3-panel session to investigate him.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Brian
Wow.
Kemp.
Wow.
which I find pretty interesting that
Very.
he did so. And there's some other guy that got on and did a podcast and said he wants to get rid of this because he don't want to have a civil war. He doesn't want to have to dust off his rifle. Well, he's kind of in the crosshairs now of Governor Brian Kemp. So I just have to say that he's been very fair, and it's interesting, and he doesn't back down. And there's a lot of Republicans that are upset with him because he didn't placate to Trump.
Yeah.
And one of the persons that were caught up in this indictment with Trump, a person I spoke about before that I've known for 30 years and we started in politics together, he was chair of the Georgia Republican Committee and Party here in Georgia. He recruited people to run against Brian Kemp, namely David Perdue. Back when I served in a leadership position within the party, the one thing that officials and officers of the party did was they were non-biased, or they let the people that were running for position fight it out amongst themselves. And then once one won, then they would pour their support. We never got involved in picking somebody over the other. If we had a favor, we kept it to ourselves. But this particular party chair literally picked people to go after Kemp and supported him as chair.
Wow.
But Kemp said, hey, I'm going to do my job. And he made it a fact. He says, as long as I'm governor, we're going to follow the Constitution. And he said, what you guys are trying to do may be illegal.
Well, I have a lot more respect for Brian Kemp now. Michael, I used to kind of compare him, put him in the same boat as DeSantis. And I certainly have a lot more respect for him now and the things that the stands he's taking.
Now that you mentioned my favorite governor, what do you think about the fact that he wouldn't go and stand with the president and the hurricane sites with the people who were destroyed by the hurricane?
That is very disappointing.
Very much.
Go ahead, Barbara, and then I'll follow up.
No, you go ahead, Michael. You're fine, because I'm sure our thoughts are the same.
Well, here's my perspective on it. You're the governor of the state of Florida.
Right.
Your state just experienced a natural disaster. Part of your job as governor is to do what's in the best interest of the citizens of Georgia, the people that elected you to be governor, to take care of them. That's your number one priority. And because President Biden comes to Florida, you decide you will not meet with him because of party politics. This is the reason why the country is fractured doing this. You got to put that aside.
Absolutely.
Thom, if I'm here in Georgia and we need some help, you're in a position to help us because you're in the federal government. We may not agree on everything, but on this one thing we can agree on.
Absolutely.
Right. And I'm gonna put that aside and say, let's take care of this. It's just like that joke about the lion and the hyena or something like that, where the lion saw him and said, "What's wrong, man?" He says, "Man, I just lost so and so." The lion said, "Man, I'm sorry about that." He said, "I'm gonna let you go, but tomorrow I'll be chasing you tomorrow."
I may eat you tomorrow, but today we're friends. Right.
Yeah. And I don't understand why you can't do that. Now, you want to be president. You're running for president, but this is the way you
of the United States.
Of the United States.
Everybody.
Right.
But this is the way you show your leadership skill and how you're governed.
One of the things that has really surprised me about him in his campaign is who in the hell is advising this man? I mean, where are you getting this advice? Because to me, it's wrong. It's you're not helping yourself by doing all this dumb shit. I mean, that's just dumb, man.
Well, he's catering to one small group, Thom. I think they consider that their base.
No, he's trying to out Trump, but you can't out Trump.
True.
Yeah. Trump is the master at being Trump.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's not.
Yeah.
Right.
He cannot put party affiliations aside from the needs of the people. And
Yeah.
Well, see,
Well,
that's one
gonna be
thing
to his
that our
detriment.
governor has always done is he says, I'm the governor of Georgia.
there you go.
I do
There you
that
go.
first because
Right.
they've
There
been
you go.
talking to him about running for president and all this. And he said, no, I'm the governor of Georgia. We got things to do here. I'm taking care of that. Your boy DeSantis have been coming to meet with Kemp trying to get his endorsement, and Kemp has backed off on that. He hasn't
Yeah, I
given
don't
him the
blame him.
endorsement.
I don't
Right.
blame him.
Yeah.
You don't want to endorse a dummy. I mean, this man's got to be dumb.
But you know what?
Just the stuff he's doing.
But
Yes.
Tom, check this out. This is what amazed me. I read where there are some people on the far right in the Republican Party saying he did the right thing by not meeting with Biden.
Yeah, well, that's, and I'm sure that's probably why he did it.
Yeah. And you said the right thing. They're on the far right. They're way out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's another thing we need to get rid of is far right, far left, red,
Yes.
blue, purple, and all that.
Yes.
It's too much easily a stereotype. Anyway, I tell you what, we'll come back with the G list, but let's get to Sean and let her do her got a minute, and we'll be back. Sean, are you there? Sean's got a minute for us.
Good morning to everyone joining in with us. My name is Shantia Jones, and this is Got a Minute. Hello, September. Tell me everything. As summer fades away and autumn begins, we witness the cycle of life and death in nature. This directly correlates with the introspective focus of September, encouraging us to let go of the old and welcome the new, both in our external environment and within ourselves. September is also associated with a sense of balance and order, representing a time to get things in order and prepare for the future. To help us do that, we can start by reflecting on our growth and abundance by nurturing our dreams, relationships, and personal growth. Or letting go of what no longer serves us, such as negative beliefs or toxic relationships that hinder us from growth or making space for new opportunities and personal transformation. And my personal favorite, by showing appreciation for the present moment. By acknowledging and appreciating the present moment, it reinforces a positive mindset and attracts even more blessings into our lives. Now, before I go, I'd like to say happy anniversary to my TWT team. You are all my favorite. Thank you all for joining in. My name is Shantia Jones, and this is Got a Minute.
Right. I told Sean that I think this got a minute is getting pretty popular and that maybe she can expand it from 1 minute. She said, well, it's been more than 1 minute for the longest. So I guess I'm a little bit behind. Anyway, Hollywood has the A list, and here on Tuesdays with Tom, we have the G list. Our G list guest today is the TWT team. And any of you in the chat, we've got something to say. We got quite a few people in the chat this morning. Gretchen, good morning. Glad you're with us. And say good morning to Craig for me. Becky, good morning. William Wallace, good morning. Anthony, the Heat of the Night team. All you guys, we appreciate you being with us. Loretta, good morning, Loretta. Anyway, I just wanted to get that good morning out. So let's go to the G list, and I got some topics for you guys, things that I think to do. Let me ask you something. Is 80 years old too old to be president?
I would say when you look at the number 80, the obvious answer is yes. I would agree with that. But I think that it needs to be a caveat there, depend on your ability and if you have all your faculties and what have you. There are some young 80-year-olds. I have a gentleman that works with me in my organization. He's about 80. His mind is just as sharp as a tack. Yes. He gets around, he mows his yard. He's in great shape. He just finished certifying on all the companies that we represent with no problem. So if you're 80 years old like him, and as a matter of fact, I think he's 82, I'd say no. But if you're 80 years old like our current president that's making some blunders and what have you, and obviously is not where he needs to be, I would say yes. And that also goes for the former president who's 77 himself.
Right.
You know, you cannot lead a nation if you're not mentally and physically fit. That's all I'll say about that, you know. But I would say yes on the preface, the number 80. You don't think of that being somebody. You think of the job of
just
president.
go on the number.
Right.
Say what?
Yeah. I was going to say, it's
You
just
don't
not
just
the
go
numbers.
on the number.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
What do you think about what's his name?
What's his name?
The one who freezes up. What did you call it, Mike?
Mitch
Oh,
McConnell.
the turtle.
Yeah.
The turtle.
Mitch McConnell.
Mitch,
Yeah.
hard. Mitch needs
I
to go
think that-
home.
I think it's time for Mitch to take a back seat. I think they're
Yeah.
covering for him, you know, and probably because they don't want to lose they don't have the majority. He's the minority leader right now, but the leadership that he brings, and he's been there for so long and have done a fairly good job. I think that they're trying to cover for him, but I'd say, yeah, it's probably time for him to sit down, as well as Dianne Feinstein,
Yes.
who is still battling in a chair. She forgets what she's doing, you know. Everybody,
Well, you know, I think one of the things that it shows us is that staffs are doing most of the work anyway.
Yes.
And so a lot of these people, I mean, hell, they don't read those bills. Some of those bills are 30, 40, 50 pages long.
Right.
And so somebody tells them these are the major points. This is what you need to do.
But Tom and Michael, I don't know if you actually watched the clip I guess it was last week when Mitch McConnell froze last time. It was embarrassing. I mean, the man, it was obvious. He just couldn't speak. He couldn't even, he was trying to process what was being said, I guess, but someone had to come to his side and it's like, you know, Senator, are you okay? Do you need a second? And then had to come back and say, well, you know, give us a minute here. We need to work with him. And yeah, he's just not capable of doing the job any longer.
Well, Bill Richardson, who passed last week, who was a former governor of New Mexico, and who was the guy that they chose to go over and try to negotiate the release of people who are held prisoners, Americans who are held prisoner in other countries.
Mm-hmm.
And he was 75 years old. But nobody accused him of being too old for his job. So I don't think the number determines whether you're too old or not.
Right.
I think how you handle yourself, what's going on with you, so on and so forth, pretty much determines that. I mean, I don't know how old DeSantis is, but hell, he's got some issues.
I'm gonna say it's not age. Yeah,
You know,
some people's mental capabilities start to expire soon before they
That's fine.
turn
But
age.
Tom, you brought up something here I like to share, and I'm talking to men here, not necessarily women, but it could apply to you. You asked the question if 80 is too old. Well, CDC has released a BMI chart showing the average for men in every age category. And for those of you who do not know what BMI is, that's body mass index. And what they are saying is that it's a sample of U.S. population and men, and that the BMI for all men 20 and older is 29.4%, meaning most men in the U.S. are overweight, which brings about, you know, other health issues, especially if your middle get out of shape. That can bring onset diabetes and what have you. And something else that's interesting is that it says that men 40 to 49 years of age, the body mass index is 30.1. And for men 80 and older, it's 27.6%.
Wow.
So, and an example of how to calculate your body mass index, let's just say if you're 5'10" and you weigh 165, your BMI would be 23.7%, which would be a healthy weight. Anything below 18.5 would be underweight. There's a calculator on the CDC website where you can go in order to calculate your BMI, or you can buy one from Amazon. And the reason why I say it's just like this age thing is if you're going to get life insurance, and at a certain point, they take a physical and they send somebody out to take your vitals, body height, measurements, weight, and all this. I recall I was getting a fairly large size life insurance policy right after I got divorced in order to take care of my kids if something were to happen. And when I filled out the application, I told the people I was in super preferred weight class. Well, they asked me what was my height and weight, and I said, I'm 6'1", 225. They're like, you're overweight. We got to rate you up. And I said, no, I'm not. They sent somebody out, and when they looked at me and then I got on a scale, yes, my weight was high, but it doesn't calculate muscle mass and leanness. And my body mass weight, even right now, is about 15%. And I weigh between 220 and 225 at my age. So you can't just go blindly at one thing. And that's where a lot of insurance companies come off overrating people and charging them more because they think that somebody, say like Thom, who's a past athlete and played football, you look at him and he's a big guy. He may not be overweight because he's solid. In other words, it's not fat. And that's the same thing with the age thing. It depends, And in this article, they did say that. But that's one thing you have to look at is your body mass index to determine your health issues.
So you saying you weigh more than Trump?
Well, Trump's well, yeah, I do weigh more than Trump.
Trump weighed 215 now.
Trump's 6'3", 215, so I'm 6'1", 220, 225. But I bet you I'm in better shape than Trump.
I was going to say they say muscle does weigh more than fat. So
I don't think Trump weighed 215. They didn't weigh him. He just told them he weighed 215.
Yeah, it's funny. They did a comparison. They showed Lamar Jackson, who's 215, and showed Big Trump at 215 and say, this is who he compares with as in the NFL.
Somebody did a cartoon. They said Trump's rear end may weigh 215. That's about
I'll
it.
leave Trump alone. Okay, let's see. What else you guys got?
I want to bring up again. We talked a couple of weeks ago about COVID being on the rise again. It's out here. It is rampant again. Our first lady just tested positive for COVID, and thank God so far the president has tested negative. But I was on a flight on last weekend. Hardly anyone on the flight had on a mask, and I was just amazed that people are just not taking it serious anymore.
Well, that became one of the divisive issues, which is really stupid to me. But that became one of those issues that divided people.
Issues. Yeah, right.
And which it shouldn't have.
It should not be anything that it's not a political thing. This is people's health and life we're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about this back, I want to say in April, we said that it was going to be a surge coming, and that's what we were trying to do is let everybody know to get ready for it. It is here. It's made itself here. And there is a new variant or a new strain of COVID. As a matter of fact, here in with my CVS store, they have the new COVID vaccine that will be here on the 18th of September for the new variant. And there's another one that people that are over the age of 60, you may have seen Magic Johnson doing a commercial on it, a public service announcement called RSV. It's a respiratory issue.
Yes.
And you may want to go and check to see if you need to get the shot. It's over the counter. But with all things, you have to kind of be careful. And you got to do your homework. That's how everything is nowadays. Unfortunately, you've got to be your own advocate for everything. We had a lady on the show not long ago that talked about her breast cancer issue and how she became an advocate.
Right.
And just to give you an example, when I went to get my flu shot and I was scheduled to get a vaccination for COVID. And by the way, I think it's going to be Moderna is going to be the prevalent one this year, as a matter of fact, especially for this new variant that's coming out. But when I went there, my pharmacist says, well, we don't have the new variant yet, so it doesn't do you any good to get a booster here because you've already had that one.
Right.
But come back. I asked him about the RSV, and he said, well, that's a prescription. And he's like, you don't really need that one and stuff. And I said, really? Yeah. He said, no, you won't require that one. He says, and you got to get a prescription from it. Well, 24 hours later, I was at a Kroger in another part of the city, and I saw them having a sign saying RSV vaccines here. So I asked the lady, I said, could I get an RSV vaccine? She said, yeah, I think so. What's your date of birth? And I gave it to her, and she wouldn't talk to the person. And she said, yeah, would you like to have it? I say, do I not have to get an over-counter prescription? She says, no, you make the age requirement for it. You know, we can just put it in to see if your insurance will pay for it. You know, and I said, well, I'll get back with you. So I'm just saying, you guys got to do your own homework, you know, because some people got RSV last year and they thought it was COVID, and it wasn't COVID. It was this. So that's just out there to everybody that is, you know, 60 or over. You may want to look into that along with your annual flu shots because they're trying to get on top of it this year.
Right. And my sister-in-law is a respiratory therapist, and she said that the diagnosis for COVID as well as RSV is on the rise right now. She said the hospital's full of children as well as elderly people over the age of 60 who've diagnosed with both of those. So it's certainly something we need to be concerned about.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on. I'm gonna move on to my closing commentary here, and then we'll come back. Closing commentary, or as I see it, music has always been a big part of how I function. If you come into my office during the day, there's generally some music on. I love many different genres of music: rock, reggae, soul, some country, but I really, really get into the blues. The blues is my favorite. I learned some blues trivia the other day, though, that startled me. One of my favorite blues men is Bobby Blue Bland, who's passed on. But on TWT, we always say information is knowledge. Well, Bobby Blue Bland mixed gospel with blues. I love many of his songs, including The Ghetto, Straight from the Shoulder, Members Only, Secondhand Heart, and many others. He's in the Blues Hall of Fame. He's in the Memphis Music Hall of Fame. He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He received the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. He is listed as number 163 on Rolling Stone's list of the 200 greatest singers of all times. But here's the shocker. He was born in the small town of Barrettville, Tennessee. Bobby Blue Bland dropped out of school in the third grade to work in the cotton fields, and he never graduated from school. In 1951, talent scout Ike Turner, Ike and Tina Turner, that Ike Turner, recorded Bland for Modern Records in Memphis. It was then discovered that Bland was illiterate. He could not read. So they had to record, they could only record one song because it's the only song he knew. And that was, they call it Stormy Monday. Later in his career, Bland was described as one of the greatest storytellers of blues and soul music that left the listener drained but awed. Listen to Sunday Morning Love, and you'll get what I'm talking about. And that's how I see it on this September 25th in the year 2023. So we can go back now to, but yeah, Bobby Blue Bland is one of my favorites.
Mine as
Secondhand. Is anybody here got a secondhand heart? Because his is worn out.
Yes, God. Yes.
I would just like to clarify something here. Joyce, our researcher, said that the CDC has a notification about the RSV vaccine. If you're 60 or older, your healthcare provider might recommend RSV vaccination for you, especially if you have a weakened immune system from illness, leukemia, or HIV infection, are for medication, treatment for cancer, or organ transplant. If you have chronic medical conditions such as heart or lung disease, or if you live in a nursing home, if any of these apply to you, you might be at higher risk of severe RSV disease. So that's perhaps why my pharmacist said I didn't need it because of that. So that's some clarification. Thank you, researcher Joyce, on that. Good job.
You got a new job, Joyce. Anything else you guys got this morning?
Well, there's two things. Marjorie Taylor Greene. You know, it's funny.
Lord.
We're in Georgia. We have it all going on, don't we? We have Governor Kemp on one side. We got Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Trump is on the other side.
Is the guy still in jail that was?
He got out.
Okay.
He got out.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yes. His name is
Harrison
Floyd. Harrison Floyd. He was able to get out last Tuesday evening. And he talked about what he felt to be unfair treatment he received as being a Black Trump supporter. He felt like he was really singled out, you know. That I'm just saying that's how he felt, you know. But anyway, they were able to raise money and let him out. And we talked about the donation that had reached $200,000 to pay for his legal fees. On that note, it's funny, Tom, you brought it up. Trump came out later and said he didn't know any of those people.
I saw that. But whenever there's trouble, he doesn't know anybody.
That's right. Yeah. He don't want to be associated with them then. They were his buddies before. There's probably pictures of him and Floyd somewhere together, but he doesn't know it.
Trump hell, ain't it?
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
She has come out and said that she credits the Almighty for what happened at Burning Man this past week. Burning Man is a festival that takes place out in the Nevada desert where a lot of people go. And it's one of these kind of festivals for people that are a little bit eclectic, eccentric. You know, they dress up in all this art and they just go out there, kind of like the Woodstock back in the day, except I don't think it was a bunch of orgies going on. But anyway, because they have kids and stuff there. But she says God has a funny way of letting people know that he's God. So all of the rain and the mudslide and stuff that happened, she credits God for that. Now, what confuses me about this is she's the one talking about her AR-15 and how she's going to shoot. She raised more hell than anybody, and now she want to flip and say God did this. I don't understand these people that help me, y'all. Can y'all help me?
I don't think they understand. I think they just say stuff, and they know that it's going to be recorded. They know it's going to be videoed, and they ain't worried about the outcome of it because it's stupid and they know it, but they're going to get on national television.
Tom, I'm not sure some of these people are even smart enough to distinguish between the truth and their reality, their mind and their reality, because they just want to be right all the time. So they justify those things that they believe.
You go back to when Trump became president. And one of the first things he said, he attacked, quote, fake news. And that has started this whole thing where you can just lie and say it's the truth. You can just make up stuff and say, yeah, this is the way it is. Those people were doing this out there. And that's why they got this or whatever. And there are some people who are going to believe it.
Yes.
Who are going to go with it, you know? I tell you what's interesting. I was in Birmingham 2-3 weeks ago, and I had lunch with a friend of mine. We're about the same age, and his daughter came and joined us, and she's probably in her 30s or whatever. And he came up with some statement that he had seen on the news, and it was just far-fetched. I can't remember what it was, but his daughter said, "Dad, tell me what network you heard that on."
Absolutely, yeah.
She said, "I know you heard that on Fox, didn't you?"
Yeah.
And I just stayed out of it since it was a father and the daughter thing. But
Some people are just so vulnerable. They just want to, whatever what they want to believe, they hear it and they just run with it. That's,
well,
okay, it's now what I was in the back of my mind, someone else has said it and it must be true.
but
So
now
let's go with that.
you can pick the network that who will say what you want to hear.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
and that's where you go
That's what
with
they
it.
do. Yes.
Well, I guess I just have a real problem, and it's probably just me, and probably the way I was brought up, is that someone that is elected to a position of leadership to represent people should really carry themselves in the best light possible.
Right.
They should try and tell the truth and be forthcoming about it. And I just don't see that anymore with these elected officials.
Right.
They're just, like you say, Tom, they're just there for sound bites and to get attention. But how can you go vote for somebody that's acting a damn fool? I just don't get that. Oh, I forget. If it were me, I couldn't get elected dog catcher, but they can act a fool and get elected.
Well, that we can go back to Herschel, and
Yes.
I'm kind of glad he's gotten out of the public spotlight because I think he was hurting himself more than anything, and had a decent reputation before he ran for office, and so I don't know. I just it's where we are. When you hear, and here's the thing. Somebody can make a statement today, and in less than 5 minutes, we can all go and look it up and determine whether it's the truth or not.
That's true.
But they don't care,
Right.
because there's some people who aren't going to look it up.
That's true.
You can go. You always talk about your grandparents and how you were raised, Michael, and we all talk about how we were raised. Well, in our home, when you said something, and I said, Mama, tell me this, so and so and so and so and so and so. She said, look it up.
Look it up. Yes.
You had to go look it up for yourself and verify whether or not this was a true statement or this was something that was, and they're not doing that anymore, And so Marjorie Taylor Greene can say something absolutely stupid. I mean, she's already kind of viewed as being stupid. That's about the nicest way I can put it.
So she is stupid.
As Joyce says, running for office is easy. Governing in the best interest of the people is tough. And so it's the world we're in. Hopefully we will survive it and move on.
We will.
Barbara, Michael, you got anything else?
No, that's it for me today. I thoroughly have enjoyed this segment. I hope our listeners got something out. We tried to bring them a little bit of entertainment and something that was newsworthy and something that maybe helped them as well. So I trust that we did our job.
And we'll always talk about football, but we'll also talk politics, and we'll talk some of the stuff that's going on out here in the world.
Speaking of football, I just want to say Cam stole my thunder. He came out this past week saying he want all the Auburn fans to know there's a freeze warning. I was the first person to say that.
You did.
You all just remember that. Okay.
I remember.
Now everybody's saying there's a freeze warning on the plane. Trump, Cam, I beat you to it now.
So Cam is. I saw Cam. He was on something not too long ago. Right after. Well, it wasn't right after. Soon after Auburn won the national championship, and what was that, 2010, something like that. And I was in the elevator at the Auburn Hotel, and the door opened, and Cam got in, and we were the only two in the elevator. Mm-hmm. And somebody had given me a national championship pin, and I had it on. And I saw him looking at it, and he was looking at it, and he said, "Hey, man, can I have that pin?" I said, "Man, you played in the game. You should have your own pin."
Right.
I'm going to keep this one. But so we shook hands, and he stepped off the elevator.
All right.
Allowed me to keep my pen. Anything else from you guys?
Short the
Well,
show
thank
today.
you. Hey, we want to thank the audience, particularly all of you in the chat and so on and so forth. It's been fun. You know, when we do these special shows, I guess, where we don't necessarily have to have a list guest from time to time, they're a lot of fun. And
Yes.
so we get to explore a lot of different topics. And I think the people in the chat enjoy having a little more freedom to say what they got to say. So anyway, we thank the audience. We appreciate you guys. Thank everybody who participated in the G List. Thanks again to the TWT team, Barbara, Sean, Emily, and Michael. And that's it for this September the 5th. Remember, a day without a smile is a day wasted. Enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe. Peace.